Now, when we start to work with layouts in our database, you'll notice that FileMaker actually creates a layout for each table from the first time you save your changes. For example, here in the Manage Database dialog. So when I click OK, it'll actually create one layout for each table automatically. So this is very helpful to get started. Before proceeding with creating your layouts, and before you spend a lot of time doing this, you need to think about what devices are going to be accessing your database. Is this going to be a desktop computer, a laptop, an iPhone, an iPad? So you really need to spend some time planning out your database before you get to the point of creating tables and columns and things like that. So let's say for this particular example, we know that this application is only going to be used on a computer. So what we want to do is use this section here, which will help show different dimensions. Let's say we want our application to be 600 by 800 points. We click OK, and this is going to be the size of our application. So let's adjust our body and footer to approximately where we want it to be. That looks good there. And then we're going to resize our width, and we're going to turn off this other area because we don't need that anymore. So this is our layout, and we can actually very quickly change the theme that FileMaker is using by clicking this icon here. And FileMaker comes with different presets. Let's try this one called Sophisticated. And let's try a different one. Oh, this one looks nice. There you go. So I'm going to select these fields and delete them. And I'm going to go to View, Field Picker, or Command K, or Control K if you're on Windows. And I'm going to select my 4 fields and ensure the field placement is set vertically, and we want the label to be on the left side. So with those options set, I just click and drag, and I have my 4 fields on my layout with this new theme. And I can choose my field here, which is the contact ID, and I don't want this field to be editable. So I go over here to the inspector, and I'm going to turn off the field entry during browse mode. Okay, and now if I go to View Browse mode, I am now in data entry mode. So to quickly go over this, FileMaker has 4 views. Browse mode is where you're going to be doing data entry or viewing records. And in Find mode, you are able to search for specific information or to pull up certain records. Layout mode allows us to edit the layout. And Preview mode is used for printing reports and things of that nature. All right, so now let's go back to browse mode, and you'll see that FileMaker has automatically created the first record, and we will put some information here. All right, and you can use these icons at the top in the menu in order to create new records or delete records or perform a find. Now let's say we want to add a navigation menu to our database. So we're going to go to layout mode, and we're going to add a button bar. So if you click right here, we'll have our button bar tool. And we can make this a little bit wider. And we have 3 buttons. So we're going to select the first button and double click it. And we're going to call this Contacts. And the next one we're going to call Orders. And the third one we will call Products. And let's say we want to define our products before having our contacts and orders. So if you click and hold down a button, you can drag it to reorder the menu. Now every layout is made of specific sections or parts, and you can see those here on the left side. And so we have a header, a body, and a footer. Now this is actually the navigation part. So what we want to do is go to Layouts, Part Setup, and we want to create a new part, and we're going to call this Top Navigation. And let's click OK. And we're going to actually move our button bar into our top navigation part and reduce the size. And if we use our inspector here and we go to the first tab, we can see, and let's do this. Let's go to View, Rulers, and click this corner option here so that we can operate in points. So it looks like our header is 50 points in height, and we'll make our top navigation the same. All right, and I'm just doing that by entering. I click the part, I enter the amount, and I hit enter, and that will resize that part. Let's make sure this is pushed up all the way. So now we have our navigation area, and then we're going to have our buttons for this particular layout in the header section. All right, and so we're going to complete this navigation menu, and in order to do that, we're going to add a button action. So we double click the first button, and what we're going to do is a single step, and what we want to do is go to a specific layout. So I simply type go to, and I get an option of all the script steps that have those words in them, and I double click go to layout, and here I choose layout, and I'm going to select products. Now if I were designing a database for FileMaker Go, I could also select an animation so that when it goes to that layout, we could, for example, slide in from the left or cross dissolve, whatever you choose. In this case, this is a desktop application, so we can leave that as it is, and we click OK. And we're going to do the same for each button. So we choose single step again, and we want to go to layout, and we're going to select our contacts layout and click OK. And we'll do the same for orders. All right. Now, at this time, FileMaker doesn't allow you to set areas that you can repeat on multiple layouts. So you have to copy and paste this navigation menu onto each layout that you want to use. Just remember that once you copy and paste, any change you make to this menu, you will have to recopy and paste it onto every layout thereafter. So you generally want to plan your database very well before you do all your layout building so that you don't have to waste a lot of time. All right, so now I'm going to go to my orders layout, and I'm going to create in the same way a top navigation, and we're going to make this 50 points, and I'll go to products and do the same. Okay, and I'll go back to, when you're in layout mode, you can also switch between layouts using these two buttons here. So let's go to contacts. I select the button bar, and we copy with Command C, or you can do edit copy, and we'll go to the next layout, click near where we want to paste it, and we're going to drop it in like that. And we'll do the same here. And now we need to resize our layouts just like we did on the first one. So if I click on any section, Looks like we have 800 is what we had selected. Yes. So let's drag our edges. And we're going to do the same thing for the bottom. So if we go to our first one, we actually need to resize this a little bit because we added our navigation. So that's going to affect the amount that our footer drops down. Okay, and an alternate way to do this is if you click on each part, you'll see the size of each one. So we have 50, 50, 459, 40, and we can just go 50, 50, 459, and 40, and we do the same here. And now all our layouts are the same. Okay, and so now if we go to contacts and we go to browse mode again, we can test our layouts, and it looks like it's working now. Now the next thing we need to do is go back to layout mode, and we have to change the theme for our layouts. So if we go to products and we choose our theme here, we were using Enlightened Touch, and we're going to delete these fields, and we'll do the same for orders. And now we can create our orders, and we're actually going to make this particular layout a list. So in our contacts, we have a form for viewing our records, but let's say under orders we might have a lot of them, and it makes more sense to have a list view. So what we want to do is go to layouts, layout setup, and we want to go to views, and we're going to uncheck form and table view so that the only layout available will be a list, and we click OK. And now we're actually going to reduce the size of this part in the body, because that is going to repeat over and over for each record. So now we're going to bring up our field picker, and we're going to drag these 4 fields onto here. But first we need to change the field placement, and we need to create the labels on top of the fields. And once we've done that, we click and drag, and we've got our fields, and we're going to make the body slightly larger, and we'll select, holding down shift, you can select multiple fields. Let's move these over a little bit. And now let's say we want this field to be right aligned. So we can go to Format, Align Text, Align Right, and we want the date field to have a drop-down calendar so that we can enter things easily. And so in order to do that, with the field selected, we're going to bring out our inspector, and we're going to go to the Data tab. And at the very bottom, we can also format the date. So we're going to select this option. And then at the top, we want to select the control style, which is going to be a drop-down calendar. So I'll choose that, and I'll include an icon to show and hide the calendar. And let's move our amount field over a little bit more, and we'll bring this out a little bit. We can do the same for our order number. So now if I quickly go to browse mode and I create a new record, you see that I can choose a date, or I can click into the field and edit it manually. All right. And if I create a new record, see, now we're using list view to view this series of records. If I were to go back to layout mode and change the layout setup to be a form, now we're only able to see one record at a time, and I would have to go back and forth between them. So let's put this back to list view. All right, now let's say that we want to be able to select the contact from a list. If we go to our contacts, let's just make a few. All right, and if we go to our orders section, what we want to do is go to layout mode, and we're going to create a value list. So let's go to File, Manage, Value Lists, and we're going to click the new button, and we're going to call this contacts by ID. And we're going to select the first option, which is use values from a field. All right, and we're going to select the contacts table, and we want to show the contact ID and also display the first name, last name, or you could select something else if you had a different field. Now, we're kind of limited here because we can only select either the first name and last name. So what we're going to do is click Manage Database from this little drop down here. And we're going to create another field. And we're going to call this full name. All right. And we're going to make this a calculation. And let's click Create. Now we're presented with a dialog where we can specify the calculation. And we're going to choose first name. And in FileMaker, when you want to put two strings of text together, you're going to use the ampersand. And in double quotes, we're going to put a space and the last name. All right. And we're going to change the storage options. And we want to index this. So what this means is that we're going to save those the result of this calculation in a field so that it can be used in our value list. So let's click OK. And we're going to change this to a text calculation. So once that's done, we can click OK. And now we have our first and last name concatenated into a single string, and this field is called full name. All right, so let's click OK, and now we can select that field. All right, and let's click OK and click OK again, and one more time. And now that our value list is set up, I'm going to close this field picker, and we're going to select this field called Contact ID, and we go to our Data tab, and under Control Style, we're going to choose Drop Down List, and we want to choose our Contacts by ID field. So now let's go to Browse Mode so you can see what this does. So now I have a list here. Now the only problem is that when you do it this way, it's only going to show the contact ID once the option has been selected. So there are a couple ways to get around this. One of them is if we go back to layout mode and select the field, and again operating from the fourth tab, we can actually do a pop-up menu. And a pop-up menu looks a little bit different. And if we go back to browse mode, you'll see that now it's going to show me the contact ID as well as the name. And you could change this if you wanted to by going back to Manage Value Lists, and we double click our value list and choose Specify Field, and we could select this option here, Show Values Only from the second field. And if you click that and we click OK, now it's only going to show a name. So the field is actually storing the contact ID, but it shows us only their name. Okay, now let's say we might have people who have the same name, but they have a different ID because they're a different person. So let's keep this unchecked so that we can see both options. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do for our database is we want to format our numbers with a $sign instead of just a regular number with with a decimal point. So what we want to do is go to layout mode and select our amount field, and again in the fourth tab we scroll down and we choose under data formatting, we want a currency format. Okay, and we can choose a fixed number of decimals if we want to. In this case we can only have 2 decimals. All right, and we can also turn on the thousand separator if we're going to be entering larger numbers. So you can change here as needed the currency symbol and the format, but we'll leave that the same for now. And let's go back to browse mode. So now we have our numbers formatted how we want them. Okay, and let's create a new order. I'll give this one an order date. And here we'll create a new order, and let's say this is for $1,082.76, and then we choose the customer. All right, and you'll notice that we don't really have any separation between our records. In other words, there aren't any lines between them. So what we can do is if we go to layout mode and we double click the body part, we have this option in the part definition dialog which says use alternate row state. And if you click that and press OK, now when you go to browse mode, you'll have alternating colors for our orders. And we can make this field a little bit bigger so that we can see the full name of our customer. And you'll see the alternating background colors. And if you didn't want this blue to show every time we select a specific record, we can also turn that off by double clicking body and unchecking the active row state. Let's see how that looks now. So now the fields are just being highlighted. This looks a little bit better. Okay, and we can rename this header to just be contact. Now let's say we want to add a couple things to this. The first being to turn off editing of the order ID. So we select this field and we uncheck the field entry under browse mode. And now we want to add a button to this layout, which when we click it will take us to that contact. And we're going to create a small script in order to do this. So I'm going to select the button tool, and you have an option here. You can do a popover as well, which I won't get into in this particular lesson, but let's just choose button, and I'll draw my button, and it's going to be an icon. You could do icon and text or just a simple icon. And let's look for a magnifying glass. Here we go. And for this, we're going to choose to perform a script because it's not just a single step. We have to actually look up the contact. So for this, we're going to create a brand new script. So we're going to click the plus sign here, and we're going to call this script go to contact from order. And let's click OK. And the first step we're going to use is go to layout, and we're going to choose contacts. And then if you press the down arrow key, you'll get a new script step, and we want to enter find mode, and we'll turn off a pause because we're not going to manually enter anything. It's going to be part of the script. And then we're going to set the field value, and if we click this little cogwheel, we're going to specify what field, and we want to enter into the contact ID field a calculated result. Now I'm going to show you a function, and I'm going to explain it in a little bit. But under our get functions, we have a series of functions which get certain information from us that is available in FileMaker Pro. And what we want to use is get script parameter. So let's double click that. And I'll explain what that means in a little bit. So now we click OK. And the next thing we want to do is perform find. Okay? And that's all our script is. So in other words, we go to the contacts layout, we enter find mode, we specify in the contact ID a specific parameter, and then we perform a find. So let's click OK. And here we're given the option to enter a script parameter. Now what we want to do is enter what that script parameter is going to be. So remember, we're on the orders layout connected to the orders table. So in the order table, we have this field called contact ID. And if we double click that and we click OK, we can now set the specific contact ID for that order as the parameter that the script is going to use. So if I click OK now, let's position this button, and I go to browse mode, I'm able to click on a particular order contact, and it will take me to that contact's information. Let's look at that again. So here's what's really happening. Let's go to orders. I'm going to turn on the script debugger in FileMaker Pro Advanced. You don't have this feature if you're using FileMaker Pro. So you go to Tools, Script Debugger, and this is basically going to pause my script step by step so that I can review it. So if I click on a particular order contact, and this button right here, more specifically, it's going to perform this script which I created with a parameter, which is the contact ID. In this case, it's 1. So now if I go down a step, you'll see the script in action. I go to the layout contacts, I enter find mode, I set the field of the contact ID with the parameter, which in this case is 1, and then I perform the find. So that's what FileMaker is doing behind the scenes, but to us it just looks like a very quick action.